You know what? It's mind blowing that that documentary that Tariq Nasheed put out, saying that Black Americans were the ones that were the founders of hip hop. It created all of this animosity between Black immigrants and the so-called Black Americans. Now, Fat Joe went on a podcast and basically called out Black Americans. He waged war on the so-called Black Americans, and it's interesting that you open the door for other people to come in to make money, and then once they get to where they want to be, then they turn their backs on you. They turn their nose up at you. Now, Fat Joe made his money off of Black Americans. Black Americans were the ones that put him on, just like Black Americans put on Jim Carrey, Mariah Carey, Vanilla Ice, all of the Drake, Black Americans put them on. And it's interesting that once they get to where they want to be, then they turn their nose up at Black Americans and talk about how, you know, that what Black Americans are now. And Fat Joe, he said some really nasty things about the so-called Black Americans, and I think he's also waging war on Black Americans because he pulled up in Harlem and was like, "I got guns in the trunk. I'm outside." And then some Puerto Rican dude, called in on Star on his podcast and was saying that Black Americans are afraid of Puerto Ricans. So now you got the Puerto Ricans, you got the Caribbeans, you got the Africans that's angry with Black Americans because Black Americans decided to take their ball and go home. See, this is why Black Americans or FBAs should focus on helping each other rather than trying to help other people. Fat Joe made his money off of Black Americans, off the Black community. And now that he's in his 50s, he don't need you no more. He feels, hey, I can turn my butt up at you. And he in that podcast, man, every other word was nigger. He was just using it real loosely. I'm talking about uncomfortably loose. See, so now they talking about, boycotting this dude, man. It's like, it's too late now. He made his money. And Fat Joe had been rubbing elbows with Kamala Harris. And I think he's also upset because of the fact that the so-called Black Americans voted for Trump and not Kamala Harris. So this is all a political backlash. And he don't care nothing about foundational Black Americans because he made his money and ran, and now he's rubbing elbows with politicians. And I would not doubt it if sometime in the future he decides to run for political office. See, there's an old saying that you don't burn your bridges. You don't burn your bridges because you never know when you have to cross back over. See, one day Fat Joe is going to need the FBAs, the foundational Black Americans, the broke foundational Black Americans. He's going to need them. And Black Americans are not going to be there for him. So it's interesting that these migrants, these Black immigrants are coming here, and these Puerto Ricans. And there was a Black woman that was attacked, that was set on fire on the subway by, I think he was from Guatemala, set her on fire. So a war, and I'm surprised, man, that a war has not already kicked off between Black Americans and immigrants, Black immigrants and Puerto Ricans. So now they're starting to, stick their chest out a little bit now. So Black Americans, man, they think y'all scared. They think that Black Americans are afraid of Puerto Ricans. Are you? But I just find it interesting that you got people that Black Americans put on that gave them the opportunity to get wealth. And then once they got that wealth, now it's like, we don't need y'all. Y'all are niggas. right? So it's crazy, man. So prepare for war.